Welcome back. The White House recently announced its plans to help alleviate some of the legal obligations on prisoners to pay for child support while they are locked up. Ron, is this reasonable action to be taking?
Is it reasonable action to be taken to put someone that owes child support in prison to begin with, expecting them to pay child support? So that becomes the question.
That's a good point.
Should we be putting people that owe tremendous amounts of child support in prison? Now, if there was some bodily harm as part of why they went to prison is one thing. If it was just for non-payment of child support, etc., there's got to be an alternative program like the alternative sanctioning program that the state's attorney has here in Washington County today.
So I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if they're just being put in prison because they don't pay child support, and I'm not sure I've heard that has happened, but I guess it has, you know, that doesn't make sense to me. But the other reality is if you're in prison because you've done a violent crime, and assuming you've done that because you didn't have assets otherwise, you can't get blood from a turnip, boys.
Well, and I think there are two questions that I would ask the panel, and not necessarily literal questions, but somewhat, to think about. One, what is your ability in prison to earn an income to pay child support?
None.
None. The second is, are we, and I think to play on what Ron said, but I'm going to expand that, are we imprisoning a great deal of people that really should not be thrown in prison in the first place?
Well,
We are,
Yeah.
but not related to child support. But
No.
I'll tell you what it is related to, and that's the drug war.
Yes.
All right, I was actually reading an article earlier today about a man who he had a kid, and he couldn't find a job. So in order to financially support that kid, you know what he did? He started selling marijuana. Well, guess what? They arrested him, locked him up. Now he's got child support payments he has to pay because he got caught trying to support his kid.
And, I think you're hitting on something that's very important. It's a conversation that's only starting nationally. We have treated something that is less harmful than alcohol as a reason to incarcerate a lot of people. And there are people who have served 30, 40, 50 years in prison for simple possession.
Right.
And there is something, I don't care what political stripe you carry, there is something fundamentally wrong with that philosophy.
I agree.
I agree too, but the issue of paying child support while you're in prison, I get where the law is coming from, where the legislation is coming from.
Then you agree with the president.
I actually do on this one, potentially. I mean, again, how are you going to pay it? I mean, unless you have assets that can be sold off to pay your child support, how physically can you pay it? Because as we all, I think, agree, you don't make money while you're in prison.
Right, and there's a bigger question, although I think, and here's the way to look at this, and I think there are competing nuances here, right? Because obviously, if you're dealing with a single parent or somebody who is supporting a child, child care is very important. We cannot forget that. But keeping in mind the fact that we're incarcerating a whole lot of people that maybe shouldn't be incarcerated in the first place, is there an ability to give them the option, especially for people who are serving time for nonviolent crimes, to actually earn an income? We're punishing them by taking their liberty. We have work release programs.
Right.
Why don't we give them the ability to contribute? And actually, to be honest, I think if we're incarcerating somebody and we're paying for their maintenance their entire time, maybe we should make an investment in giving them a skill while they're in prison, giving them something other to do other than assault their roommate in the shower or do whatever else people do in prison. And actually, maybe once they come out, first of all, we stigmatize somebody who committed a crime for the rest of their life, which may not be right when somebody serves their time. But maybe we should be putting them in a better position once they come out and actually being able to support their...
Well, and I think depending on what state you're in, I think that can happen. I watch some of the prison shows that MSNBC, the lockup.
Well, if you're in Alabama, it's not so good, or
Well,
Mississippi.
but the point is, I mean, but again, states have to control that. The federal government, and I would argue, frankly, regardless of the fact that this is federal legislation, I'm not sure it should be federal legislation. I think it should be controlled by the states because states control child support, right?
And the prison systems.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, but
Ron,
yes, I do agree in
last-minute
theory.
thoughts.
My last minute thought there would be with two local businesses that had about $1.5 million embezzled from them. Where's one of them's person to pay it back but in prison for embezzling the money, how are they ever going to get their money back?
I love it. And that's all the time we got for that segment. But up next, this week's election update. Stay tuned.